Brother rescued me from being a forced live-in nanny, now we're both disowned, and I'm fighting to save him from depression. I, 20F, am currently in my 4th semester of college. The fact that I am able to go to college is largely thanks to my brother Mike, 27 male. This resulted in us both being estranged from family, and the reason for this post is that I need to help him with his resulting depression and isolation. Some backstory: we come from a patriarchal, conservative Christian background, although we didn't really practice. But everything was always in the obey your parents vibe. My parents, both 43, are the oldest siblings in their families. My father's family, parents, 2 brothers, 1 sister, all live within 20 minutes of my parents' home. All aunts/uncles are married and I have 8 cousins on that side. My mother's family is originally from here as well but has all since left the area. Grandparents moved to a retirement community in Oz several years ago. Uncle is career military currently stationed at Guer. Aunt, Kay, moved to Oz after graduating college for her career. We are from a Midwest US state and are Caucasian. This whole fiasco started when my older sister Lisa, 22F, was in college back in spring of 2020. Right before COVID shut down her college that March, she got pregnant after a party. She didn't know until after she was back home. In fall 2020, my senior year of HS, I started my college application process while my pregnant sister lived at home. Mike had finished school several years prior and had started his career about 90 minutes away from our hometown. Lisa gave birth to twins a few days after Thanksgiving 2020. In January 2021 I received my early acceptance to my dream school, nothing like Harvard but a highly rated public Ivy in my state. I had also gotten enough of a scholarship to cover the tuition, but not room/board. Obviously I was ecstatic. Unfortunately that was about to come crashing down. In May 2021, my parents told me that I could not go to school and that I needed to stay home to raise my nieces while my sister went back to school since she needed to support her kids and thus needed a better education. Much screaming ensued, with my father eventually telling me that his decision was final and that was that. Well, Mike learned what happened, called me and said yeah that's not happening, and we made plans. I would like to take a moment to give a shout out to the Reddit posts back in early 2021 that discussed the steps to take and things/docs to gather in order to successfully leave home for good. And that's what we did. We had discussed plans a few times when he visited and took me out to lunch, and one day that July I had my essentials all packed, left a letter for our parents, and after lunch we just went back to his apartment. As you can imagine, the fallout was explosive. Starting with angry calls and texts and led to us both being disowned by the family for being disloyal. Mike had predicted this and we were both prepared for it, so it wasn't a surprise. Anyway, that August he paid my remaining school balance and dropped me off at my dorm, and I have been living and studying here since then. He has continued to pay my room/board and whatever else scholarships didn't cover ever since. I cannot thank him enough for what he has done for me. Since then, we have had pretty much no contact with our parents, sister and all aunts/uncles and grandparents on dad's side. I am still in contact with 2 cousins, F19, F17, who support me and think we made the right decision. We do have contact with mom's side, and have both flown out to Oz the last 2 holiday seasons to spend with them. This past holiday is when Aunt Kay first talked to me about her concerns for Mike that she noticed. They are very close. She is only 3 years older than him and we all grew up together in our grandparents' house, so they are like siblings, and I guess she picked up on some things that were off. The issue I need help with: Aunt Kay and I have noticed him seemingly becoming more depressed and isolated, and this is what I am hoping for some help in helping him. Mike is somewhat introverted and has always had a very small social circle, and a lot of his social outlet was with our extended paternal family. There were family BBQs very often, especially during football season when it was pretty much weekly. Throw in holidays, birthdays etc. There were probably 2 big family events a month minimum. Mike was able to attend most of those, and he always tried to hang out with my dad and uncles even though they always acted lukewarm to him. With that now gone for the past 18 months, he hasn't really had that outlet. So please Reddit, any advice would be appreciated. He gave me my life back and I need to find a way to do the same for him. Thank you all. Note: I do plan on sharing this post with him when he visits me next weekend. My school is a 2 hours or so drive from where he lives, so he meets me for lunch 2-3x per month. I want to be able to sit down and read this through with him and talk with him about everything, so thank you again. TL, Doctor, my brother helped me escape life as a forced nanny and go to college. We both got disowned by family and he is becoming depressed. I'm looking for ways to help him. ETA, I saw a few comments below regarding our extended family, so I thought I would add a couple notes. My mom's side totally supports what Mike and I have done. We both talk to our grandparents and aunt regularly. We have even visited them a few times in the past year in Oz. From what I can gather on my dad's side from talking with my cousins, some of the family don't think we are wrong and are just following my dad's lead since he is the oldest sibling. My uncles, dad's brothers, are still very much supporting my dad's point of view. According to my aunt, my mom and sister both want to put this all behind us and move forward, but my dad is being stubborn and won't let it go, and they don't want to go behind his back. The craziest thing to me is that my sister didn't even want to go back to her school. My dad was going to force her to go back. It boggles my mind still how they thought it would work out. Growing up, our parents had always encouraged all 3 of us to pursue some kind of higher education after HS, either a traditional college or trade school. So there wasn't really the gender dynamic of dad works, mom raises the kids in the extended family. None of my aunts, or grandmothers for that matter, are traditional Soms. Update 1. Mike came down here on Saturday as planned. I had spoken to my Aunt Kay before this and she thinks if I gently asked direct questions and probed that he would answer. So that was my plan. My roommates knew the situation and what I was planning to do and they were understanding and agreed to give us the app to ourselves for the afternoon. After he arrived and we ate, I just straight up said to him that Aunt Kay and I had noticed some changes to his behavior and that he seemed really down. He looked at me for a bit and then slowly nodded and agreed. I took this as a good sign that he would be open and honest with me. I said that I wanted to help him and to please be open and talk to me and that I wouldn't judge him for anything. He said okay. Then I pulled out my laptop and mentioned that I had made a post to Reddit about him and he gave me a very confused look. I sat down next to him and asked him to just read it and we can talk about it. Well, he basically broke down with his head in his hands after reading the title. So yeah, I guess it was pretty accurate. I just held him and said that we would talk whenever he was ready. After a few minutes he was able to collect himself and we went through the whole post together. Then we started reading the comments one at a time and talking about each one. He took all of the comments and suggestions to heart and we talked about how he can go about putting himself out there more, both dating and trying to make new friends. In typical nerd fashion, he even broke all of the ideas down in categories: outdoor, indoor, online, and is willing to give pretty much anything a try. The city he lives in isn't huge but a quick look through its sub on here found a few things so the opportunity is there. He seemed a little embarrassed, in a good way, about all of the praise he was getting. I knew he would be but I just told him that other people see him for the wonderful brother that he is. There were a couple comments that mentioned suicide or drug abuse that I really pressed him on. He promised he wasn't doing drugs or drinking excessively. In all of the times I was at his place he never had more than a 6-pack of Guinness or some craft beer. This is something I'm definitely going to keep on him about since I don't want him to drink his pain away. He said while he never really thought about actually hurting himself, he said he sometimes feels lost and has dark thoughts that can really mess up his mood and that he was struggling and very frustrated with himself at times. He said that he often can't even look at himself in a mirror because he is embarrassed at where he is in his life, outside of work, compared to his friends. Really just that his closest friends have all moved on to the next phase of their lives and is stuck and feels left behind and not able to move forward. He is scared that he is going to turn into one of those people that have their own dedicated sub on here. He often just drives around the city after work for hours because he doesn't want to go home and every once in a while he said he has gone to bed with the thought that he didn't really care if he woke up or not. All of this scared me and broke my heart. He agreed that this isn't healthy, massive understatement to say the least, and that he needs to seek some professional help soon. We talked about his social life after college. He said that for the first couple years he and his closest friends and so's would meet a few times a week and travel somewhere together every few months. He separated from his GF of 4 years in 2019. He and his friends still met up after the lockdown started in 2020 but it became less and less frequent as the friends were becoming more involved with their so's and later kids. Eventually they were meeting once a month or less. Mike recognized this but said he had a hard time meeting new people to go out with or finding people who were looking to make new friends as opposed to just chit-chatting while they did whatever activity they were doing. He said he found it very hard to break into existing friend groups and has some acquaintances but not really anyone who he feels close to. At the same time, he was going to more and more family functions just to fill a void and be social around people, and dote on our nieces, after they were born. After that was gone, he felt completely lost and spiraled down but didn't know how to communicate how he felt until I forced the issue. It was mentioned that I should not try to keep defending my parents and I agree. What they wanted to do was inexcusable and unforgivable. I asked Mike if he would ever consider reconciling with the family if they reached out. He said Lisa yes, Mom maybe, everyone else can fuck off. I was a little surprised and asked why and he said that they basically told him what they really thought of him and his life and interests. He pulled out his phone and showed me the old texts from when I left. Multiple messages from our father calling him a disgrace, disowning him, demanding he return me to them, WTF? I am not property, calling him the mastermind of this plot to destroy the family and all sorts of other vile stuff. One uncle mocking his manliness for doing things like reading, he likes to read fantasy stuff, as well as his career, engineer, as something not manly enough. One aunt that threatened to cut his balls off as they are the source of attitude and disobedience. Another uncle that threatened to beat the shit out of him if he saw him again. I think Mike would wipe the floor with any one of them. More of the same from grandparents, dad's parents, and some other adults on that side. I had received some nasty messages, just not the threats, and was a little shocked overall but he just had a little smirk. When I gave him a questioning look, he just said that it's good to know how people really feel and where you stand with them. When I asked about Mom, he showed me her last few messages to him. I was expecting more of the same but it was much different and I am not sure what to make of it. She said your father needs you to bring her back right now. Mike, I can't do that. You know if I do she will never be able to get out. Mom, I know. Please take care of her. I love you both. Mike, I will. I love you too Mom. NGL, I cried after that for a bit. So yeah, it turns out that my dad's whole family is a lot more toxic and despicable than I thought. I still can't figure out mom's reaction, though I asked him point blank if he wanted me to take out a loan to cover my expenses for the rest of my time at school, and he rejected that immediately. I said that I didn't want him going into debt for me, and he said that he wasn't. He pulled up his account and showed me the transaction last month from his savings account to my school as proof. He said that he wanted me to be able to finish school debt-free like he did, since it takes so much pressure off. Most of his friends have $40K plus in debt, so even though there is currently a payment pause eventually that will come due. I asked him how he was able to do that, and he said he got merit scholarships plus several grants that covered all but about $2,000 per semester, which he could cover himself, and he worked to always have enough money for the difference. We grew up low income, not exactly poverty but definitely at the low end of the middle class. I would have been eligible for need-based aid as well, but my parents refused to fill out the form, so I wasn't able to get the grants or regular student loans, and they wouldn't co-sign a private loan. This is how they were going to force me to stay. When Mike found out, he did the math and figured out that as long as I was able to keep my scholarship to cover tuition, he would be able to cover the rest. It comes out to about $7,000 a semester that he is covering. I am more comfortable knowing that he isn't going into debt for me, and I am definitely making sure I keep my GPA well above the level needed to keep my scholarships. He told me to not worry about the money and to just focus on doing my best. I also found out that he is still sending money every month to our sister, something I knew he did before but didn't realize he was still doing. His response, a shrug and a comment that he was pretty sure the kids aren't eating less. We ended up talking a lot longer than I realized, and my roommates came back around 7 and asked if we wanted to get some dinner. I asked Mike if he wanted to stay and keep talking, and he said yes. We ordered some pizza, and the 6 of us plus my 3 roommates and 1 BF, sat in our living room to eat. I could tell this was probably Mike's worst case scenario of being in a group of friends but not really knowing anyone other than me. His body language showed he was uncomfortable and guarded, body tense, head down, shoulders hunched forward, but my friend Nikki made sure to keep him engaged in the convo, and after 10 to 15 minutes, Mike visibly relaxed. He sat back and looked relaxed and was much more forthcoming. I was so happy for him and thought that maybe he is just someone who needs a little more time to really become comfortable enough before opening up and talking freely with new people. He ended up crashing on our couch that night. Sunday morning he took me to breakfast to talk some more before he dropped me off at work. We had a long hug and he thanked me for recognizing that he needed help, and that reading the comments and talking about how he felt and coming up with some ideas and plans made him feel better than he had in a long time. I told him that I love him and I am there for him always, and reminded him that we are a team in this. After work I called Aunt Kay and we talked about everything. She was happy that I was able to get him to open up and understood that it was probably hard for him to ask for help. She is also going to keep nudging him to be more open and to put himself out there more. So this is where we are now. He has some homework to do in finding some new things to try out and just get out and meet people. I also told him that he has to have at least 2 dating accounts open before we meet up again, and I would help him set up a good profile equals. I am glad that he doesn't really have many regrets about what we did, I know I don't, and is really focused on moving forward. I know this will be a long and probably sometimes painful process for him, but I told him I would be there for him every step of the way. I have also reached out to some of his friends on SM to see if they are willing to talk with me about him. I also want to talk with their SOs, since they know him, and I would like a female friend perspective rather than just a sister perspective. Oh, and to the commenter/DM who said I should have sex with him to help him, I'm not sure what to say other than, he's not my type? We aren't that close? SMHIDK. I guess this counts as my one update for this. If anything else happens I can either put it in the comments or my personal page if the post is locked. I would like to sincerely thank everyone who responded for the kind words, love, advice, ideas and insight into things we hadn't realized or considered. Update 2. I am definitely going to talk to the financial aid office about my situation and see if I can be considered an independent student for aid purposes. Thanks for the info on that, I did not know this was a thing. 2. I know he has everyone on blocked except for our mom and sister. I know it hurts him that our nieces are likely going to grow up in that environment. 3. The uber-controlling part of my father didn't really come out until our grandparents, mom's parents, permanently moved to Oz. I think since we were all living in their house, it was Grandpa that was the man of the house. Mike was already in college when that happened, so he didn't get the full extent of it. This also coincided with my sister discovering boys in 8th grade, so it could be a combination of both. My male cousins, 15 and 16, are already going down the path of my uncles and how they treat their older sisters, and it makes me sad that thought process is continuing. 4. He was always a great brother to both my sister and me. He doted on us when we were younger and made time to be with us. When he got a job and then when he came home to visit from college/work, he would take us both out individually for ice cream or something just to talk. This is something Mom also did for all 3 of us. Even when we didn't have a lot of money, she took us out once a week to talk about whatever, even if we were just getting $1 MCD's drinks and fries to share. 5. I think the dinner/hangout with my friends was the first time I had seen him interact in a casual social way with people he did not know. It really helped me to see how he first acted, stoic and robotic, and then saw him slowly ease into the conversation after a while. My friends made a point to keep him involved. The BF, Rob, even got to talk a little about school stuff since Rob goes to the college that Mike did. They both went to my school's biggest rival. It was like as soon as he was able to relax and feel like a part of the room, he changed and was able to engage naturally. 6. He agrees he needs to treat his mental, emotional and social health with the same priority and focus that he uses to help those he cares about and work on building new relationships. It will likely be a long and sometimes painful process for him, but he knows he has support. 7. He is working on setting up an appointment with a therapist through his employer's EAP to help him work through some of the issues I brought up in the update. I promised him I wouldn't judge him, but some of the things he said really scared me and broke my heart that he kept so much pain inside. 8. I hadn't seen the family texts he showed me before. They are all from when we first left, he just never deleted them. I think everyone is right that my mom is suffering from emotional abuse equals I am worried for her, my sister and nieces in that regard. 9. I plan on, and have already started, doing more FaceTime/phone calls with him instead of just texts too. Try and make a more personal connection with him. Update 3. I realized after my original post that I was way too close to the situation to give an accurate assessment of my family dynamic. I was trying to defend my parents at one point, so I learned a lot by going through the comments here, and it made me think. Yes, my parents preached a lot about being a good Christian, obeying your father, etc., but there was more to it that was pointed out. I feel my father's family is a lot more narcissistic and controlling than is typical in our community. My mom's family was from the same church and were far more moderate. So looking now, it's hard to separate the church from the family. But in the end, it probably doesn't really matter. For sure, my father was the oldest son, even among his cousins, and was expected to set the example for the rest of the family. That didn't work out so well and was embarrassing for the whole family. My father wasn't able to get any further education after high school and has basically worked low-wage jobs his whole life. In some contrast, my uncles all went to trade schools and make a much better living than my father, another hit to his pride. My mom eventually got some computer/office software training after I went to school and got a much better job. She make more than my father now, but not so much more that she could support my sister/nieces on her own. My father does not want to raise more kids. He felt he was almost done. I was a senior about to graduate, and the girls were a lot more to handle than expected. This was also mentioned in the comments and is absolutely true. My father and uncles, and apparently my M15 and M16 cousins, act somewhat like an R-rated version of King of the Hill, where they stand around, drink and basically mock and talk shit about everything and everyone they don't like. My cousins are starting to turn into my uncles, and my two older female cousins, F17 and F19, are desperately trying to get out as well. Lots of talking about family members, not just my brother, behind their backs, and lots of drunken boasting. Specifically related to my brother, I think some commenters below are correct that a lot stems from jealousy that he makes more right out of school than they will probably ever make in their current paths. My uncles definitely think that any kind of office job is not manly. I have heard this line many times related to Mike. One thing I will give my father credit for is that he totally supported Mike's career path. There are plenty of other things my father had issues with, but the job was not one of them. I apologize that there was confusion on this. They all openly mocked Mike for his interest in reading, computer games and robotics. He was part of our school's robotics club. They also didn't like that Mike did not like to do things like go hunting or fishing. They all seemed to forget that Mike also played football and was a starter at linebacker for our HS team. I don't know how to explain what a linebacker is to someone who isn't versed in American football, other than someone on a seek and destroy mission for the person with the ball. This is somewhat why I think Mike would tear any one of my uncles apart. Like I said, my uncles are good at drunken bragging, and I think they would wilt if actually confronted. I think the last thing I want to say is that I am worried about my sister, nieces and mom. So is Mike. He never blocked their numbers. I think if they reached out to him and asked for help, he would instantly go. I don't know if that would be a good idea or not, but he would do it. He was a lot closer to mom, a bit of a mama's boy tbh sorry, and I think he would do it and figure out the rest later. Update 4. This has been the most emotional week of my life. I am sitting here in my aunt's living room, watching my almost 4-year-old nieces sleep. I still can't believe it. Mike and I had been planning on visiting our grandparents and Aunt Kay and her family for a while. We left the day after my summer internship ended. We had no idea that they would also be visiting. My mom and Aunt Kay confirmed that they wanted to surprise us. Well, they succeeded. When Mike and I landed, I turned my phone on. I saw a message from Aunt Kay that was just a selfie of her, my sister and my mom, with a note that just said to have a safe trip and we will see you soon. I almost broke down right there in the airport and showed Mike the message. He started breathing heavy, but his face was unreadable. I am glad he was driving because I don't know if I would have been able to. When we pulled up to the house, my mom and Lisa basically tackled me in the front yard, eventually pulling Mike into a massive group hug as well. Since then the week has mostly been talking, laughter, tears and hugs. Mom and Lisa have taken us both aside many times to talk one-to-one, especially Mike. The only negative is that my nieces didn't recognize Mike or I, which is to be expected I guess since they were like 8 months old the last time we saw them. I hate that I have missed so much of their lives. They seem to warm up to me in a few days, probably because my mom, Lisa and I look pretty much alike, only differing in height and hair color. They have yet to really warm up to Mike, but Lisa has repeatedly assured him that they will get to know him. So yeah, that's where we are right now. I am completely emotionally drained, but I couldn't be happier. Mike and I head back home later today and I start my senior year next week. I know I will get to see them regularly. I am glad my mom finally told my father that she is going to have a relationship with all of her kids regardless of how he feels. It feels like that giant void in my life is now gone. Thank you for anyone who has read and responded to my story. It has helped both Mike and I these last 18 months more than you will know. Love you all. Thank you. We are all doing so much better now. They have visited me at school several times this past semester and we all spent Christmas at Mike's house. We are still taking things slow with the kids, but I'm getting to know them now and I can't express how happy that makes me.